Yes, you read the title right. Nagi is coming back and is gonna play in the U20 World Cup. But how? He was just eliminated. Is there another wild card? Is the next chapter going to reveal there was actually a hidden 24th spot on the team? No. Those are all boring answers, and I think Kanishiro, the writer, is smarter than that. He will still bring Nagi back in a way that ultimately feels satisfying and well-deserved, and Nagi will play in the World Cup. On the Japan team, though, that's the debatable part. But hopefully this theory begins to open your eyes. And to even begin to understand the theory, we need to start here. The first thing we have to look at and understand is the Blue Lock timeline. How this story is told. There are about 300 chapters in total as of the recording of this video, so you would think a lot of time has passed in the universe, like a year, 2, hell, maybe even 5 if this series is really like most others. But that's the thing, it kind of isn't. If we cite the Egoist Bible 2.0 book, which is basically a Blue Lock fun fact collection written by the author himself, he gives us a complete timeline of the series up until when the Neo Egoist League arc begins. You can pause and look at the details if you want, but the big thing to notice is that the entirety of the story up until the NEL has only been 3 months long. Almost 4 months, but not even. 3 months and some change. That has been this entire story. And if we're being generous, the NEL and all its matches lasted at most a month. Definitely no more than that, and likely even less. So now we have a general timeline of the series, but why does that even matter? Oh, I'll tell you why. If you remember, the entire point of the Neo Egoist League arc is about selecting the top 23 players who will be on the Japan U20 team for the World Cup. And you may have also caught that at the beginning of this arc, Ego himself mentions that this World Cup begins in 100 days. So if we were to take the timeline and assume the NEL indeed lasted a month, which is still being generous, we still have about 70 days before the World Cup begins. We're not even halfway through with the time. And using the rest of the series' timeline, we can safely assume that we're not going to get a 70-day time skip and go straight to the World Cup arc. So where does this leave us? What could the next arc possibly be? For the 23 selected players, I'm sure most, if not all of them, are going to stay within Blue Lock and go through another training program or selection of sorts. Meanwhile, all the others that got booted off, they obviously, well, lock off. So Nagi's gone. How can he even imagine playing the World Cup if he's not only disqualified from the team, but locked off from the Blue Lock facility entirely? Here's how. It's no secret that the methods used to measure the rankings in the NEL are the salary. Even though he was eliminated, Nagi still has a bid of 24 million yen. That means even though at the moment we don't know who they are, there is a team out there that wants Nagi and will pay 24 million for him. There is no doubt in my mind that's exactly what he's going to do, and this is the crutch of this theory. Nagi is going to go to his desired club and learn how to fire himself up, because that's indeed what he's missing. He just isn't fired up, and that causes him to play terribly. But what exactly does getting fired up mean? Luckily, Isagi already covered this for us in chapter 297, at least partially. In chapter 297, Isagi cites that all his amazing feats and how proud he is of himself, but he realizes quickly that this fire he feels in these moments isn't something he can logically reproduce by using any method. In fact, it's quite the opposite. It's because he has this fire within himself that he's able to put his head together and find the means to improve. So let's say we have a bunch of puzzle pieces, and the puzzle pieces in question are technique/logic, execution, winning, and of course, fire. If we want to arrange them in order, the fire would always come first. The rest can only come alive if the fire is there to begin with. For Isagi, it's clear that he loves the sport of soccer, but I wouldn't go as far to say that his love for the sport is the fire he feels. In fact, he already told us what his fire is. If we go back to chapter 282, when he realizes he has to strip away all the superficial elements and go back to square one to win against PXG, he fully realizes what he's always wanted. He fully realizes what drives him. His fire is to win. His fire is his desire to win at any cost. At least as of now, that's what makes the most sense. So knowing this, what could possibly Nagi's fire be? What could be a square one desire that makes him feel motivated to not just play, but to score goals and win? You may be scratching your head and saying, well, Randers, he doesn't really have one. When he came to Blue Lock, he already wasn't interested in soccer, and you can't really say him playing for Rayo is an individual fire. And yeah, I actually would agree. If playing for Rayo was enough, then this whole thing wouldn't have happened. And it's the same thing for Rayo. If he was only playing for Nagi, then this wouldn't have happened. The only reason Rayo was able to clutch up is because even before Nagi, Rayo wanted to play soccer for himself. He wants to win the World Cup. That is his genuine dream. You could say, oh, but he said making Nagi the best striker in the world is his ego. But Nagi also said this when he clearly had no idea what he was talking about. So sometimes people just exaggerate or even flat out lie. Before all the shippers come for me, I'm not denying that Rayo loves Nagi, because it's very obvious he does. But when it comes down to it, Rayo can play perfectly fine without him, because we've seen it time and time again. But Nagi, he pretty much always needs a partner to spur him on, and that just won't work at the U20 level. So what the hell does Nagi do? He needs his individual fire that doesn't rely on anybody else, but he doesn't even like soccer. So what the hell does he do? Well, that brings us to the final thing. Remember that team I mentioned that Nagi's going to play with for a few months before the World Cup begins? Yeah, they're going to change everything. Think back to the one motivation Nagi had throughout the majority of the series that has kept pushing him so far, defeating Isagi. Ever since Isagi defeated Nagi in Team V, Nagi has always wanted to defeat Isagi, and he always made the best choices that aligned with that goal, even if that meant teaming up with the man himself, betraying his best friend to learn from him. Becoming the world's best player with Reo? Sure, that was probably on his mind as well, but especially now after having solid proof that relying on Reo doesn't bring out the best of his ability, it's very clear that all his decisions from the second selection up to the 5-stage revolver were with the intent of destroying Isagi. And goddamn, did that do something for him, because he ended up in the third selection's top 6, scored the first Blue Lock goal against the U20 team, and of course, scored the insane 5-stage revolver. Nagi kind of had a historical run for this part of the story, and he was running on that fire to destroy Isagi. So now that Nagi's kicked out of Blue Lock, defeated by it, who do you think he wants to destroy now, huh? Do you think he wants to dethrone Isagi again? No. Isagi isn't the reason he lost, nowhere near. Is Reo the reason? No. Even though Reo isn't really helping, Nagi already knew himself what would happen if he passed, and he still did it anyways. That's his fault. Reo can't be the one to blame here. There's only 2 things he can blame: himself and Blue Lock. Nagi does have to blame himself to a degree and take accountability for his actions and that pass, which already knew himself wouldn't work, but still did it anyways. But how can Nagi exactly crush himself to be satisfied? I'm glad you asked, because we actually have a character that already does this. As a foil to Isagi in almost every way, Nagi will also become someone who's willing to tear himself down and become what is necessary to win. All that leaves is Blue Lock, an organization that defeated him, that he feels betrayed by. There is no doubt in my mind that wanting to defeat Blue Lock is a desire that now burns within him the same way his desire to crush Isagi did. With these 2 elements contributing to his own unique fire, I'm sure Nagi will absolutely dominate in his club that he plays in. And as the months go by, as the tens of chapters go by, it will become extremely obvious that Nagi is a character who can finally grow on his own. So by the time the World Cup arc finally comes around, will Ego see this and decide to put Nagi in the U20 team? Or will Nagi end up applying for citizenship elsewhere, likely wherever his club is, and play for that country's team? I don't know. It will be interesting to see either way. I could genuinely see it going either way as well. I want to remind you that during the U20 match, Isagi and Rin had an insane rivalry going despite being on the same team. So there's no doubt in my mind that Nagi can end up back on the Blue Lock team, but still have insane beef with them. Namely characters like Bachira, Rin, Baro, hell, maybe even Atoya, who all more or less directly shut him out, whether it was by scoring goals against him or telling him to die and come back stronger. So yeah, that's the theory on how Nagi ends up back in Blue Lock. Honestly, I'm pretty proud of myself for this series. I feel like there's a lot of evidence both practical in the plot and sensible enough for his character for it to be true, but I also wouldn't be surprised if Kanishiro just throws the wildest curveball into something none of us expected. Let me know though how you feel about the series, if you would tweak any individual elements, or if you disagree entirely and think something else is gonna happen. Unrelated, but today, April 8th, is my birthday, and I'm really happy I was able to get this video out on it, as it's like a little present to myself, so it would mean the world to me as well if you consider commenting, and subscribing. We're so close to 100 subs on this channel. I know we can hit it by the end of this month, but yeah, that's all I have for now. I'll see you for the next chapter review. Peace.